Good morning. Welcome to the Build in Digital Micro Conference, Beyond the Build. How unique identification powers circular construction. Kindly sponsored by GS1 UK. In this session, we will be exploring how to unlock the full potential of a circular economy in construction by assigning unique digital identities to materials through QR codes, radio frequency identification, or RFID, and other technologies which enables seamless traceability, reuse, and recycling. Okay, we'll move on to our third keynote speaker today, who is Chloe Donovan. Chloe is the Managing Director of the Natural Building Systems Limited. Chloe, you are free to take over and share your screen.
Fantastic. Thank you, Joe. Hopefully my screen's coming through.
Yes.
Amazing. Great. So yeah, thanks for your time, everyone, this afternoon. It's been fascinating conversations in the breakout rooms and stuff so far. I'm hoping I can provide a little bit of insight into the kind of from the coalface lessons of trying to deploy solutions like this and some of the learnings we've had along the way. I think the first thing to say is that we're definitely not experts in this particular niche, and we are very much learning as we go. So I'm also keen to learn from others and to continue on this journey of how we can do this in a really effective way. So just by way of context, in terms of who we are, Natural Building Systems is a ecosystems integrator. So we have a modular solution that is called the Adept system, and we also have novel materials. But really, we recognize that getting a product like this adopted in the construction industry requires the integration and coordination across a wide number of stakeholders. So external design teams, contractors, professionals, but also manufacturing partners. So our product is called the Adept system, and this is a flat pack kit of parts for construction. So it comes in smaller 2D panels that can be manually lifted. This makes it really quick to assemble, but also capable of disassembly and deconstruction. So when you put it together into a house, you combine standard and bespoke elements, but because the panels are designed to be both quick to install, but also capable of being disassembled, it means that there's the potential for a secondary life for the panels and for them to be reused in other projects. So this is a kind of platform kit of parts based approach to construction. And our goal is to focus on the manufacture and supply of these panels to other people who would then do the building. As I mentioned, we have our own unique material. So we use bio-based materials that provide moisture buffering capacity and improve air quality to help reduce the need for mechanical ventilation. But this also means that they're storing a significant amount of biogenic carbon. I'll come on to talk a little bit more about the project that we've deployed the RFID solution within. It's called Old Newton School. It's been mentioned a few times. This is just a little extract of the Circuland platform and some of the product elements that we've uploaded into it. And on the left of my screen, there's also a QR code, which is what we've attached to the labels on all of our products, which is the GS1 powered QR code. And I'll come on to a little bit of kind of what those different elements are used for. For us, we provide effectively the structure and the insulation of a building, but this means that once the building is finished, actually you can't see our product. And that's part of the reason that we've gone down the route of trialing using an RFID-based solution. We were very lucky to have some support from the Made Smarter Innovation Fund to try and bring together the different stakeholders and data points that are needed to link this together. So in terms of how that works for us, we, as I mentioned, combine standard and bespoke elements. So we use a standardized kit of parts alongside bespoke parametric platforms in order to get to a whole building where any architect can design it. So this means being able to link the 3D BIM model that Circuland basically are able to do through to the data that sits behind our material passports and our products. That's been something that has been challenging. And over the last 3 or 4 years, we've explored a number of different platforms and potential ways of doing this. And so we were very lucky to have some funding to support trialing, rolling this out. Obviously, GS1, you've heard about already, but their role is really critical in ensuring the data transparency and coordination across both what we're doing, but also in the future, other potential partners and suppliers. And then, as we were discussing in one of the breakout rooms just now, there's also the element of the back end manufacturing information. So we've been trialing a cloud-based ERP system called ArcFlow, which is an enterprise resource planning system, for those that don't know, but effectively tracks the manufacturing information through our process. So the data that is collected at that level is the information about what product was made when, what suppliers' material batches were used within each product. And then that's where we link in the unique RFID tag. And that information is then what we link into the Circulan platform. And I'll come on to some of the lessons learned in deploying that. Just to give you a little overview, I think as you can see here, there's a number of different data points that are involved in getting from having our physical product to linking that into the BIM model and the Circulan platform. And we have our own internal product naming schemes, but we also have our GS1 identifier, the GTIN, our company identifier, and the product identifier. And then we have a unique serialization number that we use so all of the RFID tags have a hard-coded, basically unique identifier within them. And so we use that to link to the unique serialization number. And then we also put in effectively the batch number for the product. So that's the information that we're able to output from our manufacturing level information. And then what we have to do is manually, for now, we take the 3D BIM model ID. So it's called a GUID number, but basically in a BIM model, there's a unique identifier for each element. And what we have to do is then link that RFID number into the element ID. And that's the information that Circuland needs to be able to aggregate all of that at the product and building passport level. And obviously, there's then the QR code, which is powered by GS1, and that is the customer-facing information. So the customer doesn't need to know what element in a BIM model this product is linked to, or even the unique serialization. All they want to know is, how do I use it? What's its data sheet? What certificates does it have? What are my kind of frequently asked questions? And so we've somewhat separated these elements out. So we basically have the customer-facing QR-based information, which anyone can view whilst they can get to our panel. But as I mentioned, once it's installed, it's basically covered over, so you can't see those QR codes. And that's where the RFID information comes in. So the RFID information is really targeting contracting partners and potential future manufacturing partners, because not everyone has an RFID reader. But that would enable a manufacturer to identify the specific panel, and then they would come to us to request any additional information about it. The reason we do all of this is because our product is designed for disassembly and adaptation. It means that being able to basically reclaim panels and potentially reuse those in other projects is something that we've wanted to do right from the outset. And I'll come on to kind of a little bit on why contextually that's important for us going forward. But just to talk a little bit more about the specific project where we've trialed this. So the project is called Old Newton School, and it is a classroom project that we've installed in Suffolk. We did this using a contracting partner, so a third-party partner doing the installation. And as I mentioned, we use both standard and bespoke parts. And so I think one of the lessons that we had was around sometimes you can be too specific. So obviously, for our standard panels, we do have this unique kind of identifier with the RFID tag. Every panel does have a unique ID, but actually when a contractor is installing the panel, if you've got standard panels, it doesn't actually matter what order they put them in. And so what we would previously have done would be to provide plans and sections of the building, which identifies the kind of name, our internal naming scheme for the product. But what the RFID has allowed us to do is, where there is a bespoke product or a specific product that has to go in a specific place, we can basically include the name of that component on the models to enable that greater specificity. Sometimes you get two that look very similar but are different. And so being able to identify them with a physical name as well as the code on the tag has been really helpful. The challenge we had in this project is that the contracting partner we're working with is not necessarily familiar with RFIDs and how they work. And so actually what we ended up doing was using a more drawn information to communicate where the product needs to go. And then we went back once the product had been built and scanned all of the RFIDs just to confirm which unique cassettes or panels went in which location. And that enabled us to then link it back to the 3D BIM model so we could provide the data set of the as built, which panel is where information over to Circuland. There was a couple of lessons along the way. Firstly, the OSB material we use for the panels doesn't particularly like having stickers stuck to it. And you can see in this middle picture here, some of the stickers effectively came off the panels. Luckily, we had already built this in a little bit with our thinking. So we actually have used 2 stickers for every panel. So we've got a sticker that is inside the panel because we expected that there was a risk that putting a sticker on the outside of the panel might lead to it getting damaged or removed. So as an assurance that we'd always be able to identify the panel, we use 2 stickers. So that's meant that despite some of these getting knocked off, we're still able to identify which panel goes where. I think one of the lessons is around where those RFID tags are. A typical RFID reader has a massive range. So you can walk into a building and scan basically every RFID within 60 meters. And that means that actually, if you're trying to identify which specific panel you're looking at and you're also dealing with nearby products, trying to reduce the range down on the scanner so that you're only picking up the specific panel you're trying to pick up is a challenge, but it's also why we've moved to putting the RFIDs in the middle rather than on the corners and trying to make sure we're consistent about where they're being placed from a kind of process perspective. So I think that's probably enough from me on this specific project. I think we recognize that the way we've ended up doing it isn't perfect. There is still a bit of manually linking that information together. It would be great for us to have contractors and installation partners who are able to provide this RFID information to us without us having to basically go and do a survey. But it also, for now, aligns with our quality insurance process. So we go and inspect the panels before the internal finishes are installed to make sure they've been installed to the appropriate quality, because ultimately it's the performance of our product that is being affected here. But in the future, we'd certainly like to be able to work with contractors where they have an RFID reader on site. And as I mentioned, that's kind of separate to a client or an end user who actually is likely to be engaging with the panel at the point of it being installed or at the point of them disassembling the building. And at that point, that QR information is really helpful. What's really great about the QR information is that it's not a fixed data set. So we can go in and update data sheets and also update information on that QR code without, being affected by it basically being hard coded incorrectly. I think that's probably a whistle stop of the project and the lessons that we've learned. We are still deploying the RFID tags in our products. For now, we're really focused on our system, but what we really want to do is work with our installers and contracting partners on the kind of full building element. So we've just been focused on getting our products in and linking up all of those data points, but being able to also incorporate all of the additional materials that go into the building is where we want to get to. And we're very excited to be working with Circuland and GS1 and others on trying to progress that. But for us, the real reason why all of this matters, circularity in the built environment is something that is long overdue. I think I very much don't envy people trying to think about buildings as material banks and circularity for existing buildings. I think we're very lucky to be doing this at the outset of designing and installing buildings for the first time. It gives us a unique ability to try and build in the solution right from the start. But the reason we're doing this is because our products are storing a significant amount of biogenic carbon in terms of using short cycle crops like industrial hemp as our primary feedstocks. And that means in the future, we want to be able to effectively subsidize the cost of our panels by offering carbon credits. Having this data transparency and traceability is obviously something that will enable us to do that with more certainty. But there's also all of the incoming regulations around, the Eco Product Directive and around circularity and reusability. And also, traceability and safety in the built environment is critical. And being able to combine all of these data points to be able to trace back a product in an ultimate building all the way back to where it was made and potentially which buildings it was used in before. Um, and lastly, I don't actually think I've put it on here, but oh yes, um, bio-based materials are, I think, considered to be higher risk because of the risk of particularly water ingress and degradation of the material itself. And that's something that we really built into our product from the beginning, the right to repair and the ability to replace an individual element within a wall if you had localized damage. And obviously, linking all of this data together is what will give us the ability to do that retrospectively, and also comply with all the various ISO standards around BIM compliance and data management and fulfilling our role, whatever that might be within the project in terms of designer and contractor liabilities. But yeah, so that's pretty much us. I don't know if anyone has any questions, but I'm happy to have a chat offline as well if anyone's interested.
Excellent. Thank you, Chloe. Thank you for a whistle stop tour again of what natural building systems do. Sounds very interesting. I did pick up on some of the things you said, and my question relates to adoption really. So, obviously the contractor that you were case studying there, and obviously not we're not familiar with using RFIDs, and obviously having an RFID a reader on site as well. How are you finding adoption, and is it an educational challenge with a lot of contractors?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really coming back to like what problem is it solving? Because ultimately the contractor just needs to know which product is going where in the building. And for a really large and complex project, I think the ability to identify a group of panels, so the RFID being able to scan a whole group of products in a, from a pallet or being able to look at, on a much bigger level, I can see how that would have value. But for the projects we have used it on, they've been relatively small and they can physically see the code that is also printed on the label at that point. And so for them, it's just a case of matching that up with the drawings that they've been given. I think getting contractors and certain builders to use the kind of drawn information is a challenge in itself, let alone expecting them to interact with a BIM model. Like we used to spend a lot of time producing like sequencing animations of like how a project should be installed and found that you've got a massive range of competencies and interest in contractors as to who cares about that or is interested versus those that just want to kind of deal with the basic kind of hard copy information on site. And, there's all kinds of constraints around being on a building site in the first place that you have to bear in mind. So I think the RFIDs are really helpful, but for the contractors, I think at the build stage, it's not necessarily helping them solve a problem. So
Okay, okay, thank you. You did mention a little bit about regulations and compliance, and I'm just wondering if you could pick that up a little bit and share with us a little bit more insight into what are you finding most challenging in terms of the regs.
yeah, I think obviously the Building Safety Act coming in and the additional expectation on manufacturers to make sure that their products are specified and used in accordance with those specifications, I think is something that we're very aware of. And I know others are also making sure that they're kind of working on addressing that. I think the incoming regulations around the circular economy obviously is being phased in and is primarily being driven by European regulation. And I think Anastasia is probably much more informed on all of that than I am. But I think that, what I've observed is that there's been a lot of talk about material passports. There's been a lot of talk about kind of digital data integration, but actually grappling with how you do that. And particularly when you're looking at this unique instance tracking, I think that's a very different challenge to product level information, which, can be resolved relatively easily. But this becomes much more complicated when you're dealing in a kind of as-built environment.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chloe, for another great presentation. So all that's left to do is to round up and summarize today's presentations. So we first heard from Shervin, who is the head of construction at GS1 UK. Shervin started by setting the scene, discussing the industry and how it largely works in silos still, which is obviously part of the challenge. One way of linking the various silos together is by giving unique identification numbers to various products that exist. Sherwin explained that GS1 are a not-for-profit membership organization that create the unique identification numbers for all products using a database, and all of which carry data for that particular product it's matched to. The data each identification number carries involves places, companies, people, and transport. One example is Amazon, who use GS1 standards to identify its products so they can comply with their health and safety, sustainability, and traceability needs. GS1 are a global company and strive to challenge the global issue of a lack of traceability by using these unique identification numbers. We then had our second keynote, which came from Anastasia Stella, who's the co-founder and CEO of Circuland. Anastasia talks about a particular digital solution that links with the unique identification numbers to make the data more meaningful. Circuland creates a platform to make sense of the fairly new creation of digital passports. Digital passports are an integral part to this software and are split into digital building passports and digital product passports. Building passports carry data about where the particular products are located inside a building and via a BIM model, so you can see where they are from your own desktop. You only have to collect the data once, then you can use this digital passport for multiple projects and multiple uses, even creating paperwork that can be automated, making things easier for multiple disciplines working across the construction sector. I personally was blown away by the platform and the software that Anastasia kind of profiled, and it was a brilliant innovation. And then finally, our final keynote came from Chloe Donovan, who's the managing director at Natural Building Systems, and Chloe shared a case study and best practice within their company. Chloe started to discuss the circular construction industry. She gave a quick explanation of what their product is, which is essentially a modern method of construction using sustainable panels that potentially have the ability to have a second life. Their case study was on the old Newton School, in which she used the Circular platform and their BIM model to link the UIN on each panel. Chloe shared some of the lessons learned, one of which, interestingly, was that you can now narrow down each individual unique identification number a little too much. But by using RFID scanners and codes, which does still need a little bit of manual work, it has helped to keep tabs on the panels where they need to go, and is even more useful when disassembling the panels. Circularity in the building industry is very difficult to do, but today I think we've shown that it can be achieved. So thank you very much to our keynotes, and I hope to see you all at a future Building Digital online micro conference. Again, thank you from us, and enjoy the rest of your day.